Welcome, guys. This is the second annual ANN Nystagmus November community podcast. Wow, there's a lot of words in that sentence there. Um, my name's Frankie Caputo. I hosted last year, and I'm excited to be hosting again this year. A little bit about me and my relationship to ANN. So I was born with nystagmus, as a lot of us in here were, and I struggled with it growing up. I had confidence issues and stuff like that, and I figured, I had never met anybody with the condition before. Why not start finding a way to meet some new people who has it? So I started a podcast called the Dancing Eyes Podcast, and through this podcast, I was able to meet a bunch of people with the condition, and it was a very rewarding moment for me, and it was very fulfilling moment for me to get to meet so many people, and it made me feel not so alone, and it helped me a lot. And through that podcast, ANN reached out to me and sponsored my podcast. And after the podcast finished, I've now been a board member, and that's also been very fulfilling as well. So that's a little bit about me. So I figured maybe we can do some introductions here. So how about we do this? I'll say we can give our names, where we're from, and I guess let's just say if we have nystagmus, or if we know somebody with nystagmus, if we're a parent, something like that. So like I said, my name is Frankie. I live in New York City, and I have nystagmus. And so yeah. So all right. I'll call your names out. So Greg, how about you go next?
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Greg Rajakovic. I do not have nystagmus. I have two kids, both teenagers that have it. Never heard of the condition until they were born with it. And like Frankie, when my kids connected with ANN, they met so many others that they felt a connection. And I ended up volunteering and then being asked to be on the board as well.
Great. Angela?
Yes, I have congenital nystagmus. I was born in 1968, so it's a ways ago, and it was just one of those weird things nobody seemed to know anything about. I mean, I heard little details, but again, like yourself, I was so um lacking confidence in myself, so it was just another layer of something to feel bad about. You know what I mean? So um yeah, so it's been quite a journey, but I'm feeling pretty awesome these days. Like I'm really accepting, where this condition, and I feel that it's brought me to many places that probably if I didn't have it, I wouldn't have gone to, meaning my interest in natural health modalities. And so it's been quite a process for sure, but I'm feeling really at a good place with it, and I'm excited about that.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for joining. Where are you currently living, Angela?
Oh, I'm in Sherwood Park, Alberta, Canada.
Canada. All right, great.
We don't
All
have
right,
anything
Leslie.
like that. Like
All right, Leslie, how are you?
Good. I'm Leslie. I have nystagmus, and so does my son Drew. He's 18, and I am also on the board. Have been since last winter, and I have also found great community here in this organization.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining, Leslie. Nice to see you.
Yep.
All right. Next up, this is my mother. Actually, her name is Sherry. Hello.
Hi. I do not have nystagmus, but I have a very special person to me who does. And growing up, he hit a certain age and then really, really wanted to know more. And when he was younger, there wasn't a lot of that out there. And so it was very exciting for me to see him really participate in ANN. And I got to go to not the conference that just passed, but the one before that with him. And for me also, it was just an incredible experience. and makes me really happy that he's as involved as he is.
Nice.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Michelle, how about you? How are you?
Hello, I'm Michelle. I have nystagmus, and my son Kenny has nystagmus. He's 25. And I got involved with ANN back, I think my first conference was in 2011. And I've been going to conferences. I've met so many. I had never, Angela, I was like you, and we were born in a very similar time. But I had never met anybody growing up. And when I found ANN and went to a conference, I met this whole world of people with nystagmus. And, I never really talked about it. I think I'm just more comfortable with it now and just talking about it. And, when I need to, I don't sit and talk about it all the time. But, when it comes up, I'm not afraid to explain, what's going on. Yeah, and I'm on the board. I'm the treasurer of on the board. So great organization that's given me a lot.
Thank you for joining, Michelle. Joe, how are you?
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm Joe. I am actually the president of ANN. I have nystagmus myself, and I am in Newport, Rhode Island.
Great. Thank you for joining, Joe. Nice to see you. Let's see. Anna. All right. Hi, Anna. How are you?
Hi, I'm Anna. My dad is also on here, Greg. I have nystagmus and my brother does too, and I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and I am the chairperson of the junior board, and I'm also on the social media board.
Right on. Thank you for joining. Hi, Jen. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Sorry, I'm in the car doing the mom Ubering thing.
Oh,
But so my name is Jen, and my oldest is 18, and he has nystagmus, and we are in Canada, Ottawa.
great. Thank you for joining, Jen.
No problem.
Let's see. YVA. I don't know how to. Well,
That's me. I'm sorry. I'm trying to log in because it won't show any of my information. Hold on, sweetie. Let me do this. My name is Eva Miller. I am based in Colorado and I was born in 1984, and I too have congenital nystagmus. So I'm hitting like 40, 41. And so I think for me, as I'm growing and maturing, I've never met anyone with congenital nystagmus. No one in my family has it. My children, I have 2 children, they do not have it. And so just kind of maturing and kind of going into this new life stage, I feel like I've been able to discover a lot about myself, but there's a part of me that feels like lonely because I've never met anyone who has it. So
Here we are.
yes, my wait is over, and I have followed this group for a long time. And I think also being a mom and like trying to advocate for my kids when they're going through hard times not related to congenital nystagmus, I just feel like it's important for me to share like my struggles because I've had a lot, and I think as I move up in my career, it's becoming more apparent, or I'm becoming more self-conscious because like I have to present more and I have to speak more, and it's exposing me to more people, which makes me like more uncomfortable, and I've been able to push through. But I can tell when people notice, and like my way of dealing with it is pretending like it's not a thing. But I think I'm getting to the point where I want to move up, and I think like you have to be very authentic and true to who you are, and like I'm building relationships with people, and I know that they don't know that part of me, and they're probably wondering, and I need like tools to be confident. And I feel like I'm confident in a lot of things, but if I don't know someone or I'm in a new environment, it's very uncomfortable. But I've been able to get through for this long. And so like I want to help others too and kids too, but I too need help myself. So
yeah,
I
I think what you mentioned there is something that all of us with nystagmus go through. That moment when people realize our eyes are moving and we don't really know how to acknowledge it. Like, I'm supposed to say something, but just move. I mean, I've had people look at me and just be like, "Are you okay?"
Yes. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like that happened to me at a kickboxing class because, you got to get out your stress or whatever. And like, I must have had like super high energy or I must have something happened. And she was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm great." But, my nystagmus probably picked up and the class continued, but I couldn't keep, I wasn't going to have like this drawn out conversation, but that has definitely happened to me, Frankie. Yeah. So anyways, yeah.
That's what we're going to do. So we're going to finish these introductions up. And I think the first topic of conversation is going to be how do we go about addressing the nystagmus in situations like that. So just a few other people here have joined recently. So what we're doing right now is we're just saying our names, where we're from, and do we have nystagmus or are we a parent? Do we know somebody with nystagmus? Stuff like that. So here's a new person that just joined, Virginia. Virginia, hi, how are you?
Hi, sorry. So this is Matt, Virginia's father, but Virginia has nystagmus, and she is listening, but not wanting to talk right now. So, but she's but she's very interested in listening. So we'll leave it at that.
How old is she?
She is 12.
Okay.
She's been to several of the conferences too. So, and Ricky, good to see you again. I met you. I met you at the Nashville conference, and
nice.
we're in Vermont.
It's nice to see you. Thank you for joining. Let's see. I think.
Hey, Matt. Good to see you again.
Hey, Greg.
I have Zoom user here. That's an interesting name. Is that on the birth certificate, or is that? I'm not going to call off. I feel like if your name is Zoom user, maybe you don't. If you're interested in talking, then go for it. But if not, I think the last person here is my sister, Aaliyah. Hi, sister.
Sorry, I was eating. I just got home from work, okay?
It's understandable.
Yes, my name's Halia. I am Frankie's sister. And I don't know what else to say other than, I've seen him grow up struggling with this. And to see the growth and to be able to say, he figured it out. He went to New York, he figured out the subway systems, he made it work, and he's in such an amazing place right now and thriving. So anyways, for anyone out there, it is possible to reach your goals and succeed while having nystagmus. So that's it.
Oh, thank you for joining, sister.
You got a full row of caputos.
I know, it's a lot of caputos. It's like a mafia meeting. So to go on, is that Alex? Oh, what's up, Alex? Oh, Alex was Zoom user. Come on, man.
Oh.
What's up, Alex? All right, I'll leave it at that. So,
come on, Alex. Tell us about yourself.
The connection was terrible.
Technical difficulties, maybe.
Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Huzzah.
Yes, I guess for those of you who don't know me, I'm Alex, and I have nystagmus.
Great.
That's about it. The connection's very in and out right now where I am.
It's like a Caputos versus Rajakovics. You should play like a volleyball game or something.
Hey.
Ping pong.
My family, you watch it when you mention my family's name.
All right, so I believe that we got everybody there. So I think a great starting point would be what Eva was mentioning earlier about, hey, sometimes we're meeting somebody for the first time, or we haven't acknowledged the nystagmus before, and it flares up, and our eyes can get a little crazy. I've had a bunch of moments for myself where either I'm meeting somebody or I'm just talking to somebody, whether I was in school or at work, and my eyes just start going crazier than usual, and I have no idea. I'm like, am I supposed to say something right now? Because they're noticing it. You could tell when they're noticing it.
Yes,
They oftentimes become like fixated on it. I'm like, well, now what? And this was a great part about the podcast, because I had no idea how to handle that situation. And through the podcast, I was able to hear some other people's experiences. One thing that helps me is, well, honestly, it was kind of a cheat, but one thing that helped me a lot was just acknowledging that I had a podcast, and people are like, "Oh, what's a podcast about?" I'm like, "Oh, it's about like this condition." And that, for me, that was like an easy way of explaining my eye condition. But for anybody who doesn't have a podcast called the Dancing Eyes Podcast, um, one thing that has helped me a lot, if I'm not discussing the podcast, is I'll just acknowledge that I have an eye condition. And people tend to be curious, and they're not. A lot of people won't ask questions because they're afraid of being rude. And so it seems people will let their guard down when I mention it, and they'll be like, "Oh, okay, good. It's something that we can talk about." And then they have their questions. I feel like the usual question is everything shaking all the time? That's the question I always get. So it has helped me to at least be proactive in acknowledging the condition, and it allows me to feel more comfortable talking to that person, not feeling like there's an elephant in the room. So that's kind of how I go about it. Would anybody else care to share how they go about it?
I'll talk.
Thank you.
I don't like silence. Um, I guess I can say, I mean, I lived my whole life never really talking about it, never explaining it, never, I wasn't afraid to say when kids said to me, what's going on with your eyes? Why are they shaking? I was never afraid to just very simply say, I have nystagmus. They do it by themselves, and I can't control it. And I was born with it, and that was it. Like, I never got mad, and there were definitely kids who were mean and stuff, but fast forward 50 something years, and I'm a teacher. I'm a school teacher, and so I've been teaching for about 23 years, and probably not until like the last very few years have I actually talked about it to my class, because there's always, the, oh my God, what is going on with your eyes? Some kids, and they're 11 and 12-year-olds. So I've just embraced it. And at the beginning of the year, I just say, I'm going to share something about me. And I tell them I have this thing, and I just very briefly. But one of the things that still bothers me, and I cannot overcome this, is if I'm calling on a student, or I'm looking at a student across the room, and they're like looking to see who I'm calling on. And it happens, I'd say, almost every day. And they know
Everybody with a camera just nodded their head right now.
Yeah. And no matter how much I tell them, I'm just like, darn it, like, I was really focused on looking straight. So that's just one thing. I mean, but how do I handle it? I just say, yeah, no, I'm looking at, and I just repeat the kid's name. Or the problem is when I don't know their names at the beginning of the year, and I kind of just, look at them. But I think just embracing it, though, as I've gotten older, and it took me a long time, though. It took me a long time, but sharing it, and just that very quick response, I have this, I was born with it, can't control it. And if they want to know more, I tell them more.
Yeah. Do you feel better now that you've started acknowledging that at the beginning of the school year?
I do, because it's funny, because I ran into a student just recently who's a senior in high school, right? I teach 6th grade, and senior in high school, and he asked me, one of the things he asked me goes, how's those eye conferences going or stuff? He asked me about it, and I was like, oh, you remembered. Like, it was just very but it's, yeah, I'm okay with it, and I think it also just develops some trust with, with kids, and you've got to always try to find something to share with them that does that, and that's one of the things that has helped. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Anybody else? Anybody else care to share how they go about their nystagmus when meeting new people, stuff like that?
Well, for myself, for many, many years, like it just was not talked about. Like I was so hypersensitive about it. So, I mean, I remember even one time my husband was talking to my mom. I overheard them. He's like, we can't even talk to her about it. So it took me a long time to get to this place. And I just recently talked to some friends about it because we never talked about it. Like they were coworker friends. And I finally talked to them about it. I'm like, you probably have wondered all these years, you never asked me. Because again, like you said, a lot of people don't want to ask, right? They know something's up, right? But they
Yeah.
don't want to ask. And my one friend, she started crying and she just right away came over and gave me a hug. She's like, thanks for sharing. You're just you. I never, like, I don't notice it anymore. Like, and that's what I hear a lot. Like, they don't notice it after, right? Like, at first they notice and then they're like, you're you, right? Whatever. And in the spiritual group I belong to, I talked about it and I'd never talked about it before. And the coordinator of the group that I work with, my spiritual coach, she actually started crying too. She's like, I have never heard you talk about this. This is amazing. Like, so it's just for me, I'm just starting that process of being able to talk about it. But I do feel like next time it happens, I just want to say, oh, if you're noticing my eyes, I have a condition, it's called nystagmus. I was born with, and just leave it there, right? I do feel that's what I'm ready to do, but it hasn't come up since.
Great. Good for you. That's a big deal.
It
That's
is
a
a
really
big
big
deal.
deal.
It took a long time. Some of us, it's a longer journey than others. Like you seem young to have embraced it, right? Some of us, it took some time.
Yeah, I got lucky. I think just with the podcast thing, it kind of gave me like a head start in acknowledging it. But I always felt better after the other person knew about it.
Yeah.
I hated the idea that like my eyes are going crazy and like they don't know and I don't want to talk about it. I don't know how to talk about it. Um, so yeah, that was one thing that really bugged me a lot.
So does it depend on the person on how you answer them? Meaning, like, if it's a casual acquaintance versus a, air quotes, good friend, does that impact your answer? And I don't have it, so I'm just curious.
To what question? Like what's going on with your eyes?
Yeah.
Well, for me personally, any good friend that I have already knows about it. So that part gets taken care of at like the beginning phase of developing the relationship. Um, I also think, I mean, obviously being vulnerable with somebody allows us to enhance our relationship with them. So I think in a way, even just me acknowledging my eye condition with somebody else has deepened my relationship with that person and turned just like a casual, you know, person into a closer friend. Um, so yeah, anybody else?
I have a couple of thoughts. I think for a long time I didn't want to talk about it at all, like a couple of you mentioned, and I didn't until just a few years ago. I had to talk about it a little bit with my son's teachers because he hasn't, but as far as my own, um, my good friends I've always known, of course, but no one else, and I don't. And I would just blow it off when people would mention it or notice it, or as Michelle was mentioning with the people looking behind them, that happens to me all the time at work. And I would just kind of move on or sometimes I would just say, oh, I have this weird eye thing. I'm looking at you, you know. Um, but I would really not want to discuss it at all. But the past few years, I've had to talk about it because I do a lot of hiking and it's my big, like, kind of hobby. and I'm in a hiking group with several other women, and they started noticing that it affects my depth perception a bit. And so when we get on really tricky terrain, I have to go a little bit slower just because of the depth perception issue. And so I had to explain it to them because I didn't want them to think that, and this is dumb, this is just my own issue, but I just didn't want them to think that I wasn't a good hiker. I wanted them to know that there was a reason I was going slower. So, so I started just trying to explain it in as few words as possible. But then once I did start talking about it, I realized how receptive people were and how it really wasn't as big of a deal as I was making it. I thought everybody was just going to think I was just this, I don't know what I thought actually. I think I was really worried that people were going to feel sorry for me, which was the very last thing I wanted. And that hasn't happened. They've just been really cool about it and been like, "Oh, I'm glad you explained it." So, okay, great, And
Nice.
so then I was like, "Oh, well, it wasn't really that big of a deal, and now I feel so much better." Like you're saying, it's a big weight off.
Yeah, I can
And
relate to
now,
that. It was, oh, sorry.
no,
Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, now that I've started talking about it, now I just can't seem to stop talking about it.
Me too.
So, yeah, so that's
Good.
kind of how it happened with me. But it took 40 some years to get there. So you're
Well, I'm
way
glad
ahead
that
of
you're
me,
there now.
Frankie.
It's funny that you say the part about how it felt like such a big deal, and then you spoke about it, and you're like, oh, it really wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Because for me, in my time when I was the most insecure about it, in high school, I would be thinking about my eyes nonstop. Like every single moment, every time I spoke to somebody, I'd be thinking about them. Like, how are they perceiving me right now? How did they see it? What do they think? They must think I'm on drugs, all this stuff. And then
Yeah.
I'm so in my head about it. And then once I started talking about it and being open about it, people are like, oh yeah, okay, cool, moving on.
Right.
Once in a while
Yeah.
they'll have a question, but they don't care. Like they have their own lives to care about. It's really not the biggest thing in the world to all these people, the way that I had perceived it was. So yeah, I can definitely relate to you on that.
Yeah.
What one thing for me that was really a struggle growing up was the idea of, am I going to be able to drive or not? And I mean, I actually got my driver's license, but I didn't actually really pursue driving fully because after I got the license, I kept attempting to drive and I just felt too uncomfortable. And I was like, well, if I hit somebody, that's really gonna suck, and I don't want to deal with that. So I went for a while. I mean, up until a couple years ago, just living in places where if you most of this country in the U.S. at least, if you don't drive, you're kind of screwed for a lot of us. And so I ended up moving to a city where I was able to get around. Um, but I mean, that's my experience with driving. I'm curious what other of you guys, what are your guys' experiences with driving? Do you guys drive? Do you not drive?
I
Anybody?
never thought it was an option for me, to be honest. Like, I mean, again, it was basically when my parents were given the diagnosis, she'll never drive. They wanted to send me to a blind school, which they almost did, but because it was Calgary, not Edmonton. Anyway, long story short, it didn't happen. But I never thought it was an option, to be honest. I just didn't even. And I grew up in the country, so a very small town in the country, but in the country part of it. So when I moved to Edmonton to begin with, it was like I was in a big city. I could get around with the bus, even though sometimes seeing the bus, what number it was, back then you didn't have electronics, right? So that was sometimes taking the wrong bus, like it was a mess kind of, but anyways, got through it. But yeah, at this point, I don't even know. Maybe I could drive. I have no clue. I don't need to. I have everything around me. I ride my bike, I walk. My husband drives if we need to go somewhere. I don't require it at this stage in my life.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of doctors have given parents of children with nystagmus a big scare. Uh, I know Greg has a story about what doctors were telling his children. Greg, would you like to share?
So, and I remember this vividly. We took Alex in and I'll let him finish the back half of the story of the driving portion. But we took Alex in when he was first diagnosed, and he was probably 6 months old. And the doctor that we saw, his bedside manner was just terrible. But he told us his vision is so poor that if he was sitting on the ground, he couldn't see a Cheerio sitting next to him. So my wife and I, leave probably in tears, but certainly just distraught, thinking, "Oh no, what's our son gonna do? Is he gonna be living in our basement for the rest of his life? Do we need to buy a house with a basement so he can live in it the rest of his life?" And I'm happy to report that he's thriving at college, so that's not the case. But why don't you talk about, can you drive or can you not drive, Alex?
Okay. So I am luckily able to drive now, which has been a great part. I was surprisingly able to drive with no restrictions, which in Virginia is actually quite a strict bar, but I was able to pass it, which I was super excited about. So I currently can drive fully and have been for 2 years now.
Nice.
Nice. And I know a lot of others can actually drive as well. Anybody else who does drive, would you guys like to share your experience with driving?
Yeah, I can share. So I did get my license when I was 18. Wasn't like others, I wasn't really sure whether I would be able to. But managed, I went through the eye doctor, managed to doing the eye test at the eye doctors, and then getting a note taken to the DMV to pass that. And at first driving was very stressful. I mean, it was very difficult task to do, especially navigating while you're driving was just too much. It was very difficult. So I drove as little as possible. One of the things that has really made driving a lot easier, well, make it less stressful, is using GPS as your navigation. Kind of dating myself, but I was driving before GPS was a thing in navigation. So once that came online and that ability was there to have somebody else or something else navigate for you, that takes out half of the tasking you had to do while driving. Not figuring out where you're going. Is this the right street? Is this the right turn? Where am I? And you can just focus on the road and what's in obstacles and things like that. So that has definitely been a much improvement on my ability to drive. I still don't drive very much. I mean, I drive when I have to, but if I don't have to drive, I usually don't. So it's still I still find it a difficult task and a task that requires a lot of my concentration. So like taking long road trips, not going to happen just because it's too much effort. I mean, it's like it's a difficult task. And to be fair, I tend to treat it as a difficult task because it is. It takes a lot of my concentration to do it well. But like I said, drive when I have to, when I need to get around, but otherwise, try not to.
Gotcha. Anybody else like to share about their driving experiences?
Rosalind, your sound is off.
Was Rosin here?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, there's Rosin. Hi.
Yes, here I am. Were you going to share yours? Because I can wait because I just jumped on. No?
No, go for it.
Okay. Well, I started driving in my 20s and late 20s, I think 26. Now I have been driving for over 50 years. It's a lot of driving, right? And the first time I got my license, I cheated. I had someone go in, copy down all the letters, and at 26, I tried to memorize as much as I possibly could. And luckily, they only asked you to read maybe one line, two lines, but there were three boards. So that was a lot to, memorize. So I passed it that time. And then another time, and I have to tell you, my vision was maybe 20/40 in my good eye and maybe 20/70 in my worst eye. So you kind of have a understanding of. So anyway, after a few years of driving, which was every 5 years, I was at an AN meeting. We were doing, I think, a face-to-face, and we were talking about driving, and I was told that from, Evelyn, everyone knows Evelyn, that if you get a form filled out by your doctor and the doctor approves your driving, then you could drive, right? So I went through all the steps when my time, and all this time I'm like a nervous wreck. Every single time I had to renew my license, I was a nervous wreck. So you can imagine what my eyes were doing, right? In my head, it was like crazy. So I was so paranoid. I said to my husband, "Could you go in with me?" So we went in, and all I said was, "I'm turning in a form from my doctor." And he just told me to go to the window. She filled out the form, said, "You have to wear your glasses all the time." I said, "Uh-huh." And then it was over. So I was like paranoid all this time, and all it took was for me to turn my paper in. But I have to tell you that there was one time I came in before I knew about the paper, and the person that serviced me said, "You knew you couldn't read the chart when you came," and loud in front of everyone. "I don't even know why you even tried to da da da." And I was so embarrassed. And that's when I left. And it was since then that Evelyn mentioned about having the paper filled out by your doctor. And the last experience I have to share with you guys was last week. My birthday is December 6th. So happened I had to renew my license at this time. Once again, nervous wreck, because in between that time, some of the times they just renewed it by mail. I think it was because of COVID. So I go to the doctor, and I'm older, so I have cataracts, but they're not ripe yet, so I can't have the surgery yet. Anyway, my form said that my vision was 50/80, and with glasses on, it would be 50/50. I went in to get my license, turned in the paper, and the lady says, "Well, our limits are 40/70." And I said, "Oh." So I went she took me to another spot, and I looked through this machine. I don't know if anyone's experienced that, where they just narrow it down. It's like dark, and they just show each line, kind of
Yeah.
like when you have your vision test. I tried it, and the more nervous I got, the worse it got.
I hate that machine.
I know. And then at the last, I kept reading lines, and the last one I said, "Did I read all of them?" And the lady says, "Oh, you missed one." And she said, "Ah, okay." And she just gave me the license. So I'm telling you guys all these stories and the heartbreak, because it is a heartbreak for me. I don't know about other people when you really want to drive and someone's going to take that privilege away from you. What I've learned is that sometimes it's up to the discretion of the person that is servicing you when you go into DMV. So that's my story.
Thank you for sharing. Also, shout out to Evelyn for giving
Yeah,
you
I
that
know.
information.
I
Big
think
shout
about
out.
her all the time for that, because if she hadn't given me that paper, oh boy,
Yeah,
or
seriously.
told me about the paper, yeah. And to have a doctor, because I went to one doctor that told me, you can't drive. So I said, yeah, I can't. And then I drove home. Mhm.
Oh, that's
So,
great. So moving on from driving, one thing that comes up a lot, I feel, when discussing nystagmus. By the way, sorry if there's like people in the background that are making noise. There's kids back there, so yeah, they're distracting me. Anyway, so one thing that comes up a lot when discussing nystagmus is surgeries, surgical procedures. How can we slow the movements? How can we help our null point? Stuff like that. So I figured, we could share our experiences with surgery. So I have two surgical experiences that I've had. So when I was 13, I had, I think it's pronounced Kestenbaum, something like that, which is a surgery to help correct my null point. And when I was younger, my null point, it was kind of like this. It was pretty excessive. And now I still have a slight null point, but it's been corrected a good amount. And so that's been nice. The second procedure that I had, I believe I was 21, and that procedure, surprisingly enough, was LASIK. And yeah,
I
seriously,
didn't know they could do that for
neither did the
nystagmus.
guy, neither did they or me,
Oh,
actually.
horrible.
So the story is actually a fun story. I guess the doctor knew it was possible. So the story is, well, yeah, I wore glasses my entire life, and I wanted to not wear glasses, and they kept trying to get me to wear these contact lenses, the glass permeable lenses, these thick hard lenses, and they felt like literal like sand in my eye, and I hated them. I think my mom saw someone post on the Facebook page that they had gotten LASIK from this place in Athens, Georgia, and she was like, you know, you want to check it out? And I was like, yeah, I'll check it out. So we go there, and they do this consultation, and they're like, yeah, we don't know if we're going to be able to do it, but we'll try. And I was like, all right. And so they're like, we're gonna have you come in, come in tomorrow. We'll give it a shot. I said, great. Sorry, this is loud out there. It's like a war zone out there. All right. So, so I go in the next day, and they give me all, not Xanax, but something else. It's just like it. And the doctor's like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna try it on your right eye, and depending on how that goes, we'll give it a shot on your left eye. At this point, I was like, all right, I guess I'm committed, so we'll do it. And so they put this suction cup thing really heavy on my eye to like prevent my eyes from shaking. It was really uncomfortable, actually. But he removes a laser from my right eye, and I'm like, okay, so are we going to do it on the left eye? And he's like, yeah, it's going well. And so I think the procedure in total was like 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. And the guy was like, usually it's like 3 to 5 minutes, but they had to push really hard on my eyes. And my eyes were all bruised for like a month after the procedure. But I don't have to wear glasses anymore, which is kind of cool. It's funny because like I always felt weird about like people looking at my eyes growing up. And I finally had gotten over that. And then I get this surgery, and now my eyes are like bloodied and bruised for like a full month. And now I have to go through all these looks again. But trust me, the looks were a lot worse for the bruised eyeballs. People don't see those very often. Okay, so those were my surgery experiences. I'm going to give myself an opportunity to mute myself so you don't have to hear this, hear all that. Does anybody else have any surgical experiences that they want to share?
Frankie, I got the LASIK too, like probably 20 years ago.
All right. How was that?
I did, like, they did the same thing where they gave you like a relaxer, and then they were pretty confident that they were going to be able to do it. And so I'd had the whole suction thing too, where you like, it was crazy because you could see like on the screen, like, because there was that big screen and my parents were there. And it was the first time like they'd ever seen my eyes not move. So yeah, we had the suction thing, but I don't remember having the bruising though. Maybe I was just so happy that I was able to get the LASIK that I like blocked that part out of my mind, but it helped definitely a lot. I still wear glasses. I think I wear glasses like as a distractor for people too, not to see my eyes, or I think that that's like a layer that people can't see it as often, but overall that it went pretty well. But the suction cup was the godsend that they could actually do the LASIK, so I had a good experience. But yeah,
Nice.
it was good.
Yeah, that suction cup's a big deal. I think that's the reason they were able to do it.
Did they improve your vision?
It improved it a little bit, not to the point where I could feel comfortable driving at night. I don't know like the exact measurement, but you know, my driving is very local during the day. I've very calculated, no left turns, everything has a light. Like I go in like a circle, a right hand circle. I like mapped everything out where there's very low risk. And definitely not at night because it's like stressful for me too. So but it helped a little bit. Yeah.
It's so funny to hear someone else say that because I make a lot of right turns and I just because of the depth perception, I can't always tell how fast the cars are coming. And
100%. Yep.
I just make rights and rights and rights.
Yep. I need that light
for hours for cars.
Yeah. I just hate to wait. And I'm always so conscious that there's people gonna, get all frustrated and
yeah.
Or I'll make a right and then make a left in like over the, the traffic and then turn around and make a right. Always. Oh my God. So many times.
Me too. Yeah.
It's funny because they're replacing a lot of stoplights around us with roundabouts because they're safer. And my daughter, who I think just might have jumped off, but she says she hates roundabouts and much prefers stoplights. And she's 16 and just got her license, but much prefers stoplights because either it's green or it's red. You either know to go or you know to stop, and there's no judging how fast or how far is that coming in the roundabout.
That's true.
Yeah, New Jersey is known for roundabouts.
Oh yeah, that's true. Diners and roundabouts.
And they're brutal. Like they're not just little. I was up in New Hampshire this weekend and they have little roundabouts, but New Jersey has very big roundabouts. Yeah. You have to know them before you get into them. Or you go in the wrong exit and you just make a U-turn and you go back in it. You try again.
Yeah.
Can't say I've never done that.
Yeah. But have you guys ever experienced being with people, you're the passenger and they supposedly have the 20/20 vision and you are sitting there watching them drive, especially if you are a driver and saying, I don't know how they got their license either. And they don't have nystagmus.
Sure, always, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like you've driven with me, Roz.
That's funny. Also, I think it was Roz who asked the question about did the LASIK improve your vision? For me, it didn't. It didn't like make my vision any better than it was with glasses, but I think it got me to about where I was with glasses. Because before the glasses, I was like 2200.
Okay.
I think technically legally blind, or at least like right around there. And then after the procedure, I was like 20/60.
Wow,
So,
that's great.
yeah, it was a pretty big improvement. So yeah, has anybody else had any surgeries?
I actually tried for LASIK I guess it was probably 24 years ago. And I remember that day like it was yesterday because I remember I went in, but part of it again, I didn't tell them, and basically they were like, yeah, we can't help you. And I remember leaving that day and feeling so horrible. But anyway, yeah, I did have one. My right eye, my mom said when I was born was turned in. So they did do a surgery that's crazy. Back in 68, 69, they did a surgery and they actually corrected it. And I thought they did a pretty good job from what I can see, right?
Nice.
So that's the only eye surgery I've had.
Nice.
But my mom said I was really young, like young. She said I was still in the walker and I walked really early compared to my siblings. She said I was like 9 months and I was already walking. So I was in the walker. So it must have been like 6, 7 months they did that surgery.
Wow.
I just learned, Angela, so I also had surgery in about either 68 or 69. I was pretty young and I was born cross-eyed, right? So my eyes went in and then they made them go out. But I just learned that surgery is very similar to the surgery they do for nystagmus. And I learned literally a year ago that actually slowed down my nystagmus because it was very similar surgery to what they would have done. And the only thing they didn't do was, work on my null point because I still have a null point, and a head turn. But I found that very interesting. I never realized all these years, and I never realized. And then I had surgery when I was a teenager, because then one of the eyes went too far up, and then they brought that back down. So I've had 2 muscle surgeries, never ever thinking I had any nystagmus surgery. And it was explained to me by a doctor that, yeah, it's actually the same procedure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Nice.
Learn something new.
Yeah.
So, actually, really briefly, in regards to getting rejected by the LASIK people, I actually got rejected by some LASIK people too one time, which actually kind of sucked because I was excited about it. And they're like, yeah, there's no way, which is why I wasn't even really like thinking that it was going to happen the second time. Just why I was kind of surprised that they were looking up and I'm actually like getting the procedure done on me. I'm like, oh wow. But yeah, so we're approaching an hour here. So I guess for closing notes here before we get off here, firstly, thank you everybody for joining. This was a good turnout this year. Also, shout out to Dominica, who's not on, who wasn't able to join today, but she is the person who basically, like, I believe it was her idea for Nystagmus November, and she participated a lot, and it was her idea for the podcast, and she reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to do it. So big shout out to Dominica. Lastly, before we get off here, just I thought it would be kind of cool to just like give some advice. If anybody wants to share some advice for anybody else with nystagmus. I think the biggest piece of advice for that I
you froze.
would be discussed earlier, just kind of being. Am I frozen?
You were.
Oh, you're good now.
Now you're fine.
Okay. So I'd say just like the biggest piece of advice that I was able to come up with, which I know we discussed earlier, was being proactive in regards to discussing the nystagmus and letting other people know, like, hey, this is what's going on here. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm open to talking about it. So that's a big one. Also, a second thing for me was just realizing that it's really not that big of a deal for all these other people. It's a lot bigger of a deal in our own head than it really is in reality. If anybody else would like to share some advice, and then after that, I'd say it's about time to get off.
Well, I can say that it's something that I didn't realize until I was like 40 on up, that like you, nystagmus is not really that big of a deal. Yes, there are limitations to things that you can do, but those that don't have nystagmus have limitations, and they may have 20/20 vision. So the advice I would give someone with nystagmus is not to be hard on yourself and to be confident that you are just as competent and capable as anyone else.
Great. Thank you, Roz.
Well said.
Good advice. Anybody else? Okay. Well, nobody else wants to share. One thing that I was just thinking before we get off here was one thing that actually really helped me a lot was, might sound silly, but kind of like joking about them in a way. I was able to start, I do stand up and tell it. I mean, a good amount of my set at the beginning of going up on stage was about my eyes. And it was quite therapeutic just being able to make jokes about them. It made it less serious. And when you can make it less serious, the emotions that you connect with it don't affect you in such a negative way when you could turn it into comedy. So yeah, just being able to joke about it, making it less serious, was a big deal for me.
And it makes other people more comfortable too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That you acknowledge it. And I just want to share one more thing for me to be the last one to get on the line. And that is, I was listening to a podcast, and they weren't talking about nystagmus, but they were talking about reading and comparing speed reading to just regular reading. But they said your comprehension is better when you are reading slowly. So I don't know about others, but for me, I read slow compared to other people.
Yes.
But they say my comprehension of what I'm reading, from what I was told, is more than the person that reads fast or speed readers. So I think that's one thumbs up for people with nystagmus.
Yeah.
Go us.
Go us slow readers.
Right.
And I would add to it also community. Like this has been very enriching for me, just even meeting tonight, you know, just sharing stories, talking to other people that navigate this condition, right?
Yeah.
It's helpful.
I would say
I
the
agree.
same based on my oldest is 8. He's at band right now. We're in between bands, but or else he'd be on. But I think the biggest thing for him was getting connected with others with nystagmus a few years ago at the first conference we went to. And yeah, that was huge. Big difference.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, this is great. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.
I'd say this is a success. I'm looking forward to doing it again next year. I hope everybody here has a great night. And
You too. Thanks.
yeah,
And
it's
thank
nice to see all of
you.
you.
Yes,
for
thank you so
hosting us
much,
and doing
everybody.
this.
Thanks, Frankie.
Yes.
Yes.
Nice
Thank
to
you,
meet you
Frank.
all.
Nice to meet you.
Good
Take
to
care.
see everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.